Hello and welcome to the editorial analysis of the Hindu. Today we shall be discussing the editorial of the 17th of July. But before that, please take a look at one of our programs. We are planning for a free workshop on the 21st of July. Here we shall be inviting one of our old students, Dr. Shrikant, who had scored an All India rank of 680 in the previous IAS exam. So several insights are what are going to be provided to the students. Several ideas are what are going to be provided. All those of you who can reach us at our Bangalore address, please try and reach us on this particular day. For those of you who cannot reach us, we shall provide online footage of this particular talk on our YouTube channel, so subscribe to our channel. So now coming to the discussion, coming to the first article today. The first article is the wheels to a low carbon transport system. The context here is with regards to the need of a low carbon transport system, primarily in the context of India. Now the first issue that has been discussed in the editorial is with regards to the transport related carbon dioxide. Now basically here you need to know that carbon dioxide, we all know, is what is a major concern for the world globally. It is what is resulting in global warming and thereby in climate change. So globally it is a concern that carbon dioxide is what should be reduced. Now in this particular context, you should know that transport related carbon dioxide in India is what is on a rise. This is highest in the state of Delhi, and this is what is followed by Mumbai, Bangalore, Ahmedabad. So these are some trends that you need to know about. But if we compare our carbon dioxide emissions compared to the world, as it is in the context of transport sector particularly, India's transport related carbon dioxide is what is comparatively very less if we compare to global transport related carbon dioxide emission. So despite the fact that our emissions are less, but these are increasing at a very high level. Our increase in transport related carbon dioxide is what is 2 times approximately that of the increase that is being seen in the global increase. So that is what is the trend in India, and this is what is important. Coming to the benefits of reducing the transport related carbon dioxide, definitely there are immense benefits. First and foremost is that air quality automatically improves. If air quality improves, health of the people is what will improve. Also, if we reduce transport related carbon dioxide, then we will have to make a regulation on excess use of transport, or we will have to reduce the use of transport for that matter. And this is what is going to result in an increased physical activity for people. Either they will prefer walking or cycling. So both of this is also going to increase their health. Then noise pollution is what is going to get reduced. Also, we are seeing that in urban centers, parking is what is one of the major nuisances as of now. So this parking management is what is going to get better. Also, another benefit is with regards to the fuel prices. If less transport is what is going to be used, then fuel prices are what are going to come down, which will be in the interest of the economy. So that is what has been discussed in the editorial in the context of the benefits of reducing transport related carbon dioxide. Another analysis that has been offered is with regards to a spatial context. Now basically here you should know that there is a relation, there is a spatial impact of transport in a particular region. Primarily transport choices depend upon the income as well as the type of region. If the income in a particular region is what is high, then this will what is often going to result in people choosing for different mode of transport. They might use their private vehicles, which will be four-wheelers. Also in urban centers, there is an increased tendency of usage of transport. So that is what has been discussed. Now basically a comparison is what has been drawn between urbanization as well as public transport. Now the direct relationship between urbanization and public transport is what is directly proportional for majority of the countries across the globe. What happens is that as urbanization takes place, public transport improves. For instance, even in the case of India, a metro is what is there in Delhi, but metro is what is not there in villages. So clearly there is better public transport in urban centers. So globally what happens is that in urban centers, public transport is used more, and private transport is what is used in rural and for that matter in semi-urban areas. So this issue of high carbon dioxide from transport sector is what is a concern in semi-urban and rural areas globally. But in India, this is not the pattern. In India, the pattern is what is reversed. In India, urban centers are using more and more private transport instead of public transport, which brings us to an analysis that in India, there is a mindset that use of public transport is what is considered substandard. So this mindset is what has to change. This is what the government should recognize, and it should try and change this. In India, if one is traveling by a bus or a metro, then that is what is considered below status, and traveling in one's own vehicle is considered as a matter of status. So this is what needs to be targeted by the government and altered so that transport related carbon dioxide is what can reduce. So that is one important analysis. Another analysis that has been given is with regards to the non-motorized transport. This is a key word. Now basically cycling is what has been talked about here. Cycling is the sweet spot for any model of sustainable development. Cycling is definitely in the interest of the health of the citizens. It results in better health. It lowers disease risks like that of diabetes and also that of cardiovascular diseases. So that is what is important here. Another analysis that has been drawn is with regards to the electric vehicles. This is repetitive. We have discussed an article just yesterday on electric vehicles. The FAME India scheme is there on electric vehicles. Here what you should know, that India is the third largest market when it comes to automobile sector. So India has huge amount of scope for increasing electric vehicles or increased use of electric vehicles. For instance, e-rickshaws that are being used, these are what was sold, approximately more than 3 lakh rickshaws are what was sold in the last year itself. So there is a huge market for electric two-wheelers as well as three-wheelers. They can simply be charged at home is what is being advocated. They are light in weight. So indeed there is huge amount of scope for channelizing or using the electric vehicles in India. So that is what has been discussed. Another important analysis is with regards to the urban design. Now here the editorial is advocating that the urban design should be such that it should be very, very compact. Compact centers should be there within an urban area. For example, schools should be nearby, hospitals should be nearby, the places of job should be nearby, parks should be nearby. All of this is what is going to result in people commuting less, and as a result of which transport related carbon dioxide is what can be reduced. So that is the entire analysis of this particular article. Indeed, this article is relevant. It is important. It will be relevant for the general studies environment section of the mains paper. So that is how, and that is where you have to use this particular article. Coming to the next article, the many hurdles in providing citizenship. The context here is with regards to the National Register of Citizens in Assam. I have discussed so many articles on the NRC. This is yet another article on this, and this is primarily in news because the deadline for this is what is coming up. That is the 31st of July. So in that particular context, this issue is again in news. So largely majority of the points are repetitive. Coming to the issues that have been discussed, first and foremost, we all know this is what is a humanitarian crisis. I have discussed this much in detail. What is going to happen to the people who will not be given citizenship, who will not be recognized as citizenship? A lot of suffering is what is being caused to the people who are applying under the NRC. All of this is what is resulting in a humanitarian crisis. Some data is what has been offered. Now here you should know that 32.9 million people approximately had applied under the NRC for citizenship. Amongst these 32.9 million people, 29 million people could prove that they were citizens. They provided the documents. 4 million people could not prove this. And amongst these 4 million people, their cases are what are being re-examined. So if we expect that approximately 50% will still be able to prove that they were citizens, if 50% of them cannot prove, then that leaves us with 2 million people. This is equivalent to 20 lakh people. What are these 20 lakh people going to do? Where are they going to go? Where is the government going to rehabilitate them? Where is the government going to keep them? Will 20 lakh people be able to live in refugee camps? What will happen to their families? And what will happen to the jobs? All of these issues and questions are what are being raised in this particular context. So indeed, this is a humanitarian crisis. It is a catastrophe. Now, another thing that you should know here is this article is basically talking about the vulnerability of few people amongst these 20 lakh people also. Here the editorial is saying that amongst them, few people are such who are poor, who are illiterate. They themselves cannot fight for them. Often what happens is that if their citizenship claims are rejected, then they have to go and prove their citizenship in several tribunals. This causes them to travel a particular amount of distance, which causes them traveling fares. This also causes them loss of wages. Largely, if they are poor, then they are dependent upon daily wages. So that is what is a cause of concern. Also, because of them being poor and illiterate, they cannot sometimes provide the documents. They are not well versed with the law and the legal aspects. So all of this is what is making them much more vulnerable. So that is what has been discussed here. Another thing that has been discussed in the editorial is with regards to the 3 categories of people who are applying for citizenship. Amongst them, the first category is the D voters. Now these are the doubtful voters. They were declared as DU voters after the electoral rules of the year 1997 were what were prepared. They were not considered as legitimate voters, or doubts were what were created on their citizenship. So that is why they were named as D voters. They are the ones who have to prove themselves as citizens. Another vulnerable category is those of the people who have been picked by the police. Often it happens that if the police is doubtful that someone is an illegal immigrant, and then in that particular case the police picks up these kind of people and then they have to prove their citizenship in the tribunal. So that is the second category. And the third category are those who could not prove their citizenship under the NRC, they couldn't provide the adequate documents. So these are the three most vulnerable category who have to prove their citizenship, or else they will not be considered as citizens of India. So that is what is important. Several case studies are what have been talked in this particular editorial. Out of that, we can extract some gist. The gist is that women are more vulnerable here. Often what happens is that women have leave their maternal homes after their marriage, and as a result of which it is becoming very, very difficult for women to provide their documents. Often what is happening is that the husbands are being acknowledged as citizens, but women are unable to prove their citizenship, which often makes them even more vulnerable. We all know the plight of women in India. They are not in part, and in this particular case, it often threatens that women might be deserted by their husbands. So this kind of a situation of vulnerability is what is emerging in the context of the NRC. So that is what has been discussed. Another analysis that has been given is with regards to the tribunals. Now, I told you there are tribunals which are examining the cases. In the context of these tribunals, the editorial is criticizing that firstly these tribunals, the proceedings of these tribunals are what are done behind closed doors. Also, there are several delays that are there in the proceedings of these particular tribunals, and as a result of which clarity is what is not coming, and these tribunals are working in a non-transparent manner. So that is one criticism which has been drawn. In my personal opinion, NRC will be one of the most important topics for this year's mains, primarily because of this deadline also, and otherwise this is an important topic. You can use it in general studies paper 2, that is where a question can come, or as a social issue in the general studies paper 1, so that is where the relevance is. Coming to the next article, a scheme is what has been discussed. This is the KUSUM scheme, very, very important. First and foremost, you should know about the KUSUM scheme itself. Now, basically, this stands for the Kisan Urja Suraksha Evam Utthan Maha Abhiyan. Kisan Urja Suraksha Evam Utthan Maha Abhiyan. There is no escape from the fact that under the BJP government, such kind of mnemonics, difficult names is what you will have to remember by heart. That is the bane of this particular government, maybe for us. So, you will have to cope up with this. Now, coming to this particular scheme, the budget for this particular scheme is 34,000 crores. So from this itself, you can estimate that this is a major scheme. This is basically an irrigation scheme. And under this particular scheme, irrigation is what is going to be through solar energy. In this context, you should know that solar pumps are what are going to be distributed. These solar pumps are going to help farmers extract water from the ground, that is the groundwater, and irrigation is what is going to be done. So that is the model of the KUSUM scheme. Now here you need to know some current scenario. The first and foremost fact that is important in the current scenario is that despite the fact that electricity is what is subsidized in India, despite that more than 30 million farmers are still using diesel. So in that context, these farmers will be benefited because they will be able to use solar power. So that is the first benefit. Also, more than 50% of the net sown area in India is not irrigated only. So if these farmers in this particular region are getting access to irrigation, definitely it is in their interest. That is what is the current scenario. Also, the editorial is advocating that in the context of this particular scheme, what is the problem is that there is several amount of disparities that are there among states. What happens is that in the past, these solar pumps that were distributed, more than 50% of these solar pumps were distributed to only two states. One was Chhattisgarh and the second was Rajasthan. Now, in Chhattisgarh, the demand was what was very less, and in Rajasthan, the level of groundwater is what was very less. So, as a result of which, what has happened is that disparity among states is what has been maintained. Now, what the government should focus on is that disparity is what should be removed, and equitable distribution of solar pumps is what should be ensured. Another issue is with regards to the inequality within states. Now, here what you need to know is that within the state itself, what happens is that 90% of the farmers are what are small and marginal. And amongst the 90% small and marginal farmers, they are getting access to only 50% of the subsidies. So clearly, this is what is a reflection of inequality, which should be corrected by the government. This should be rationalized in such a way that subsidies are what are equitably distributed. So that is what is important. Another analysis is with regards to the flexibility that is required. Now, as of now, the model is such that under the KUSUM scheme, a loan is what is going to be given to the farmers, and from this loan, they will buy the solar pump. Now, the issue that is being raised here is that the majority of the small and marginal farmers do not have access to credit facilities. They will never be able to avail this loan. So only the large farmers will again benefit under the KUSUM scheme. So what is required is that one size fit all model is something that should be abandoned, and definitely loans as a model is what can be advocated, but for the small and marginal farmers, for those who are more vulnerable, direct financial assistance is what should be given, and that is the flexibility that the KUSUM scheme should show. So that is what has been talked about. Another thing that the editorial is talking about is with regards to the prudence that is needed. Now, despite the fact that 34,000 crore seems like a huge sum, in the context of the demand and the problem or the issue of lack of irrigation in the agriculture sector, this is not a large sum. So if this sum is what is constrained, this money or the budget available is what is constrained, prudence is what is required. As of now, the model that was planned was that solar power pumps will be given to the farmers. From this, they will do irrigation, and the surplus power is what they will sell to discoms. And also, already the farmers are getting electricity subsidy. So these farmers who will be getting both, these farmers will be doubly benefited. They will get income from discoms as well as they will get the electricity subsidy. So some prudence is what the government should show. The government should remove this electricity subsidy. Definitely these farmers are getting solar power. They don't need electricity subsidy now. So this money that is going to be saved by the government is what should be given to the discoms, so that discoms are what are incentivized to further purchase the solar power from the farmers, and that is the model of prudence that is being advocated in the editorial. So that is one suggestion. Another thing that is important is with regards to the grid connected pumps. Now here the editorial is discussing that once these solar pumps are going to come, then these are what are going to be connected to the main grids. What is important is that all the pumps that are there as of now that the farmers are using, all these pumps are what should be first and foremost solarized. So that is the first need. Another thing is that if the surplus power is what is going to be generated, then this surplus power, instead of selling the whole of the power back to the discom, some part of the surplus power is what the farmer should use for post-harvest uses. What will happen is that as of now, this power is what is expected to be used only for irrigation. But if some part of this power is also used for post-harvest uses, then the farmers can use this electricity for some value addition and they can increase their income. Not only will income increase, also agriculture sector will become a profitable sector. So that is what has been advocated in this particular editorial. Indeed, KUSUM scheme will be very, very important. Any question on agriculture sector, talk about KUSUM scheme, you must mention. Also, if a direct question does come, then this article is important because it has given us some shortcomings, or it has given us some criticism, which is a rational criticism, and that is what is definitely going to be welcomed by UPSC. So that is the relevance of this particular scheme. Indeed, very, very important. Now, that's about our discussion. These were the only 3 articles today. Before we finish, please take a look at one of our programs. We are starting with the mains test series from the 20th of July. This is what is going to include 12 tests for the general studies paper. Also, this is what is going to include 10 essay tests. So all those of you who are interested, please do get in touch with us. This will be both an online as well as an offline program. For the students who will be applying online, you can send us your scanned copies of your attempted tests, and we shall provide you a telephonic feedback for your test. So that's about this particular program, and that's about our discussion today. I thank you all for watching the video.